Hello and welcome to another video, and on today's video I wanted to take the time and kind of do maybe a little bit of an opinion piece here on what I think the biggest next-gen must-haves are for the new consoles that'll come out in 2020. I thought right now is a really good time to take a look at this as we're getting closer to get to E3 2019, and within the next 6 months or so we'll probably know more about what's in store for the next Xbox and the next PlayStation. I thought it was a good time now to sit down and kind of just look through different features. I think these are must-haves for the next generation of consoles. Before we get into these must-haves, I'm not really going to talk about putting something like Stadia in here. I did a whole totally separate video talking about my reaction and my opinions on Google Stadia. You guys are more than welcome to go watch that video. But this video in particular, I'm just more so leaning towards the next Xbox and the next PlayStation. So firstly, one of the most important things to me is a better user interface on both consoles, especially the Xbox. We've seen the same shitty user interface since the launch of the Xbox One. And yet, if you go back and you look at the 2013 version of that user interface and you look at it today, it's night and day in comparison. They've also done some pretty good quality of life improvements to make it faster, but it's just not there. There's so many times that I will click something on that user interface and it takes more than a second to open, which doesn't make sense. And the PlayStation, it's like this. For the most part, there are times where your PlayStation UI can also get bogged down, and I think that has to do with how many things that you have installed and how much is going on there. But the Xbox One user interface, it's a nightmare. It's bad. And if you're someone like me who has right now a little over 200 games installed between an external and the internal drive, it can be a nightmare sometimes just pulling something open. So the user interface needs a total redesign. And what I really hope is, a couple years ago when Microsoft said that they were kind of done with console generations, even though that's not the case here, they are going to have a next gen Xbox here, and there kind of seems like they're going back on that. I hope that with a new console, we can just totally ditch that user interface and have something that's more modern and makes a lot more sense. Also, the next generation consoles, both Sony and Microsoft, need to upscale their user interface to 4K because 1080p, even on these iterative consoles, just looks bad. Here's another big one I've noticed on both systems. Download speed should not be affected when you're playing an offline game. So I'll give you an example of this. If I'm playing a game like The Witcher 3, and I start a download on my Xbox or my PlayStation, it pretty much slows that download to a crawl. Yes, it's still downloading, but it's downloading at such a slow speed that you might as well just not be playing the game that you're playing. Now, I understand slowing that speed down if I'm playing an online game like Overwatch or Halo or something, but if I'm playing a game that is offline, it's not taking up any server connections or anything like that, something like The Witcher 3, or an Elder Scrolls game or something, this shouldn't be an issue. That's a big one. I see it happen on both consoles. It's more notorious, I think, on the Xbox side of things, but it still happens. Also, faster download speeds on the PlayStation side of things. Like, come on, guys, your download speed sucks compared to the Xbox. The next one here is kind of twofold. Better memory management, and also by that I mean cloud saves. So one of the greatest features of the Xbox One that's pretty much been there since day one is cloud saves being automatic, whether you're a gold subscriber or not. And on the PlayStation, they lock that behind their paywall with PlayStation Plus, but you have to manually choose the saves to upload to the cloud. And I am a person who maybe goes to a friend's house or something and will play a game for a little bit and then forget to do that. And then you come home and then you're texting your buddy, hey, can you upload my save really quick for me? On the Xbox, it just syncs all that stuff constantly. So I don't understand why on the PlayStation side, it's locked behind a paywall. I don't think that it should be. It's part of a service. It's not something you should have to pay for. But on the other side of it, it should be automatic, and it should just do that for the games that you're playing. Even if you want to limit it to games that you've played in the last 30 days, it's something that should exist. The next one is also twofold, and that's going to be for the Xbox side of things, let's ditch AA batteries, and let's change everything to USB-C charging. So, on one side of things here, you have putting AA batteries in the Xbox One controller. I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. When this generation started, I bought one of those battery packs and it worked great for like a year and a half, and then it started to waver, so I bought another one. Ever since that initial purchase battery pack for the Xbox One, every other one I have bought has been complete and utter shit. I've bought third-party ones, I've bought first-party ones, they've all been trash. I've also had more micro USB cables go bad this generation than any charge cable I've ever had across anything in my entire life, and that's not acceptable. Now, yes, I know that goes down a path of so many different third parties making cables and whatnot, but shit should just work. And the thing about it is, in the 360 generation, it just worked. And this generation, I feel like it's been just garbage. One of the great things about the Nintendo Switch is that it's all USB-C. I bought a really good Anchor USB-C cable to charge my Pro Controller, so I don't have the small one they give you with the Pro Controller. That thing's been phenomenal. I find Anchor stuff especially incredible high quality for the cables that they produce. So, and I want USB-C, as it charges much, much faster, to be something for the next generation of consoles specifically. But also, I want to ditch AA batteries. I'm tired of it. I recently went out and I bought this thing for my Xbox One. It's like an Energizer rechargeable AA battery thing because I was tired of the other battery packs. It's been okay thus far. I haven't had to charge my battery so often, but also like just this thing just seems like a piece of shit. So, and it shouldn't be a thing. One of the great things I like about the PlayStation this generation is everything's just rechargeable in the controller, much like last generation. The downfall of the PlayStation controller is that I think it would hold much more charge if it didn't have the stupid light bar on it. And yes, they did give us the ability to dim the light bar, but that doesn't really change anything. I still find myself having to charge that controller every 5 to 6 hours, and that's also, I feel, unacceptable. So, Sony, on your side of things, don't put a light bar in the next DualShock controller. While we're on the subject of charging and controllers and stuff like that, how about one of the biggest downfalls of this console generation? I'm talking about wireless microphones. What the hell happened? In the 360 generation, you know what I had? Unfortunately, I can't find it, but I had this awesome over-the-ear, and I'll put a picture of it up here. Awesome over-the-ear headset. And they did redesign it later with Bluetooth. The Bluetooth version never worked for me. But this was an awesome device for the 360 I used throughout its entire generation from when it launched until I switched to the Xbox One. It was one of the greatest things that they made for that system. I think I went through maybe 2 of them total, only because the battery life started to die. That thing was incredible. And what I liked about it was just a little headset I turned on, I turned off on my head, and I could have all my sound coming through my surround sound. I'm a surround sound guy. I'm not a headphone guy. Unless I'm outside or I'm in a capacity where surround sound doesn't make sense, then I want to have earphones. But to play games, I want to use my sound bar that's over here. I want to hear it. I don't want to hear it through headphones. That's been one of the most disappointing aspects of this generation on both Sony and Microsoft's side, that they don't really have wireless mics. Now, yes, you are going to put up that argument here that, well, Sony has the gold headset. You know, this thing right here, the gold headset. You know what? Honestly, this headset, it's a really great headset if you want to hear sound. You know what it's not good for? Microphones. This thing sucks ass to hear through a microphone. It never worked for me, and this next generation, let's just get wireless mics. We can do it. You can make it inexpensive. I think that 360 one was like $60, maybe $50. And it was awesome. One of my last 2 things here that I want to talk about that is a must-have for the next generation is, since we're going towards this whole streaming idea and everything else, I'm not a fan of the streaming future that Google is setting. I also don't think that it's going to work out the box. The other thing I don't like about it, for me as a games preservationist, as someone who likes physical media, as someone who likes to actually own video games, someone who also has a massive Steam library, I would rather have the ability to download these games and stream them as well. And I think Microsoft's probably going to do that come next generation with Project xCloud. You're going to be able to play your downloaded games off of your Xbox onto any device, you know, a phone, a tablet, whatever. That's the future that I want. The future that Google's showing me right now with, hey, whatever, you just use this service and you're streaming from our cloud bases and you're using different racks and whatever. I don't think that that's the future. I could be wrong, you know, and I'm not trying to be a backwards person here. I'm not trying to sound like an angry old man. I just think that that's bad. Finally, the last thing that I think next generation consoles should have on both fronts is something we've seen with these iterative consoles that I would like to see continue, and that is more control over. You want the game to be more performance centered, or do you want it to be more visual centered? So what I mean by that is the ability to choose between a hard lock 60 frames per second or a hard locked 4K visuals. Now, the argument can be made that these next generation systems might just be 4K 60 out of the box. And as awesome as that sounds, we're not there yet. Okay, a lot of computers, do you know how much money you have to dump into building your own computer to get 4K 60 out of any game? It's very expensive. I just don't see a $300 to $400 box you're going to put under your TV being able to do that even in 2020. So I would like to see the ability of, hey, you know what? For me, I prefer frame rate mostly over visuals. If you can give me a hard lock 60 frames, I'm more inclined to be happier than when you lock the game at 4K or even a sub 4K, but it's 30 frames. I'll give you a prime example. Right now, I'm playing Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice on the Xbox One X. Sekiro is a game that has a wavering frame rate on the iterative consoles. The problem here is that for a game like Sekiro, which is basically a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne type game, you want to have control over performance. And when you have a frame rate that's not locked, so it sputters between 30 and 60, it can be really jarring at times, and that's a huge issue. I would have much rather them said, hey, you know what? Do you want 60 frames? Here's the 1080p 60 mode. I would play through the entire game that way. Remember Shadow of the Tomb Raider when it came out last fall? The option to do 1080p 60, I played through that entire game that way, and it looked tremendous. So anyways, guys, those are the things that I think are my must-haves for the next generation of consoles. I'd love to know in the comments below what you guys think are must-have features for the next generation of consoles. Anyways, as always, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, until next time.